So what do we do? How do we
Hmm.
prevent this civilization from going off the edge the same way all the others did? Well, first and foremost, we have to, if we eliminated corruption on this planet, we could do it. That's first and foremost. The corruption has to go bye-bye. This attempt at globalism is the basis for most of this corruption. That has to stop. And it's not enough, people, you get a lot of this new airy-fairy, new agey stuff. Well, if you just ignore that and build your own reality, look, people don't get it. How did that work for people in the witch hunts and the inquisitions? How did that work for them?
Let me
Yeah,
retitle it. Do nothing. We've got your back. We'll take care of it all.
yeah.
Just
Or,
keep waiting.
yeah. Jesus is going to come and fix it, or somebody else is
Yeah.
going. No, there's nobody else. There's us, and these people have to be removed from power.
Yeah.
We will not survive if they aren't. I'm not. I don't have. I'm not going to sit here and give people how that should be achieved because I don't know, and I don't want to say, well, you must do it this way because I don't want to preempt a different future in which someone else has a better idea because maybe they do. I don't know. All I can say is it has to be done. And I think that there are signs of this on the international stage as well, that there are signs that people understand this. A few days ago, I listened to President Putin's speech at Valdai, and he also did a Q&A session with people, and he specifically talked about how the global governance scheme has failed. It's done the opposite of everything that it's promised. It has robbed people of their right to self-determination, and you hear people talk about their natural rights, your right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. But if you don't have self-determination, you can't have those others. That is the ultimate right, is your right to self-determine your own future. We live in a world where people can't even self-determine what goes into their own body. And I'm not talking about drugs. I'm talking about raw milk, colloidal silver, marijuana for healing cancer. We're being SWAT teams are raiding people that are selling raw milk. And people don't
Yep.
know this, but the founder of the Mayo Clinic healed people for 18 years with raw milk. That's how powerful it is, which is why they don't want us to have it. You see, it's backwards. It's just like Orwell said. War is peace, truth is lies. It's exactly right, because even if you look at Common Core and how bad Common Core is, a moment ago you were saying how people are just so confused, they're throwing their hands up in the air and giving up. There was this wonderful video that I shared on Facebook a few days ago about Common Core. This fellow was doing a lecture on it. It's about 50 minutes. And at the end, there's a statement, a testimony actually given by a woman who is a psychotherapist who, her caseload, I think, represented, she said, 20 different school districts in her area. And she talked about how she started getting calls from parents of 8th grade honor students and how they were self-mutilating and cutting. And she was asking
Man.
it's bad. She was asking these kids, and they were saying, well, we can't do it. We feel stupid. We can't take the pressure anymore. And pretty soon the children were getting younger and younger and younger, and they were doing everything they could. They were throwing tantrums. They were doing everything they could to get out of going to school, and they were so upset that they were vomiting because they said it made them feel stupid, like they couldn't do it, they didn't want to go. And then she got to the teachers, and the teachers were suffering from astronomical levels of depression and anxiety because of Common Core, and it goes through some of the math problems that they're using for Common Core. In this one segment of the video, this girl is showing her mother, who I think is an engineer, how she's being taught to do math, and it was a question like, if you add 1,328 to 1,107. Well, first she had to draw a cube. A cube represented the 1,000, so she had to draw a cube picture for every 1,000 in both numbers, and then squares were hundreds, and then lines and dots were tens, and it took this child 8 minutes to solve a problem that could be solved in 30 seconds by carrying the ones. When you do
You
the
mean to
stack,
tell me they've removed the numbers and replaced them with?
yeah, they're trying to, yeah, and it's just, that's how bad it is. And here's the other thing that this therapist said. She was very upset because she was getting calls from parents who were saying that in some cases their children didn't have textbooks. So they didn't even know what their children were learning, and they couldn't help their children with their homework because where they're rolling out this Common Core, if you use, as a parent, the traditional way of adding and subtracting by carrying the ones, you stack the numbers and you add them and carry the ones, whatever, they automatically fail. They will fail your child. They are trying to phase common sense out of the equation. So and we have to remember, this is a return. We're really kind of returning to the Dark Ages. And we know that it was illegal to teach them to read and write for a reason.
Yep.
So when I say that you're not being taught intelligent design, I absolutely mean it. It's very, very important that we return to it. Here's another example of why intelligent design is so important. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about how they're constantly blaming the problems they create on someone or something else. So the global warming, quote, global warming, there is no global warming. There's weather modification. And now they're trying to say, we're all going to die, the climate, this, that, and the other, if we don't do something about global warming. And the answer to that is geoengineering. Well, geoengineering is responsible for the climate change they're calling global warming. So you see that whole circle and how that is the order out of chaos and Hegelian dialectic thing there, right?
Yeah, let's do a chemtrail campaign for 30 years, and we're going to blame it on people and their habits, and, and they're bringing the carbon tax credits, and, no, we can't stop spraying. We've actually overdone it. If we stop spraying, it's gonna throw the Earth into even more chaos. It's just bunk.
Yeah, it is bunk, and you see the taxes. The carbon taxes are a distribution of wealth. It's the transfer of wealth to the system so that it can continue the production of oppression. Because you have to pay people to oppress other people. So they blame the damage they are actually causing. They blame it on someone or something else. In this particular case, they're blaming it on us. We're the useless eaters that breed too much and consume. We exhale too much carbon, and that's the problem. And global warming. Both of those are a fallacy. Those are fictions. They're narratives.
Yep.
But, okay, so, the alien thing. Okay, let's talk about the alien. Okay, so they're always conjuring up new villains, which are masks, okay? These are masks. They're myths that redirect the mind away from the true culprit. That's always the point. So we've got the archons, and we've got demons, and we've got, the Anunnaki. Look, this is all crap. It's like those cartoons when we were kids, when we actually had decent cartoons. And you would see all these people run out of a bank with their robber masks on, and they're holding the bags of money, and then they go around the corner and they change and they hide the money, and the angry mob comes and says, which way did they go? And they point, and the mob goes running in the wrong direction while they get away and laugh all the way to their hideout with everyone's loot. Okay, that's what's going on. This is blame shifting and redirection. So let's look at some of the lies, some of the mythology and attempts at reality revision around the so-called Anunnaki and the mythical planet X. Okay, there is no mythical planet X. It doesn't exist. It's more fear porn to generate funding for space weapons, which are not going to be used outwardly. They're going to be used inwardly on us from satellites. That's what they're for. In fact, this is how HAARP is aimed, and there's a wonderful article on this. Her name is Rosalie Bertell. She was involved in the evolution of the HAARP project into when it became Star Wars under Reagan, and it's called Background to the HAARP Project. I encourage people to look at that. It talks about Project Starfish, Project Argus, all of these other things that they've done, and when people read it, keep in mind that's how insane these people are. They detonated nuclear weapons in the upper atmosphere just to see what would happen, having no idea if we could survive it. So there's a level of insanity that's almost unfathomable, in what's happening here. So there's that. So, and this is really, really, it's childish, and it's sad that so many people have fallen for this. But it's constantly, and it's a form of redirecting thought patterns and looping them. Okay, but part of the mythology of these Anunnaki is that they're stealing our gold because they need it to fix their atmosphere. Okay, and supposedly that we're talking about a race that is 200,000 years or something ahead of us. Okay. If people understood intelligent design, they would know that this is not true, because you cannot fix an atmosphere with gold. What creates an atmosphere, which we've talked about this on previous shows, my friend and colleague James Horak and I have talked about it with you before on your show. Our protective atmosphere is partially created by microbes, living microbes, and they filter out harmful radiation that comes in from the sun, cosmic bombardment. Geoengineering, HAARP, and chemtrails kill these organisms. And this is why the sun looks white instead of yellow. The sun has not changed. The atmosphere through which we view it and experience it has changed, and so now we're getting a more full spectrum of light coming in. The sun looks white. It's flash cooking the plants. They look like they've been microwaved in a matter of days on occasion. That it's the radiation that's coming in. There's too much radiation. Pilots who fly at high altitudes have the same problem. They can experience hair loss. So that's not true. If you really had a race of beings that was 200,000 years ahead, they would know that the study of aerobiology is about the atmosphere and the microbes in the atmosphere, and they would not be requiring gold from another planet to fix their atmosphere. And in fact, I would like to believe that they would be technologically advanced to know how to repair their own atmosphere and prevent it from getting worse. Or if they had actually went too far with that and couldn't, well, we know that there's an entire universe full of planets, and in fact, NASA had this thing they put out about all the Goldilocks planets. So they could clearly just migrate to another planet. The only people on this planet that are obsessed with our gold are Zionists. They're shekel, the ones that want the gold. It's not aliens, okay? And this is another thing. Let's talk about reality revisions and where this all started, okay? There is a wonderful presentation on YouTube. His name is Jack Otto. It's called The History of the Khazarian Empire. I highly encourage people to look at this because we need to go back again. You know, if you're looking at the Earth from a 30,000-foot view and you're seeing what's happening in the degradation, you have to begin drilling down in to figure out where it started and why it's happening and who's behind it. Okay, so in this wonderful presentation, he talks about who the Khazars were, the Khazarians, and how these people were the most brutal people to have ever existed. And at one point, they were driven out of other countries through war. They ended up mingling with Italian people because of their physical features, you know, the dark hair, brown eyes, how they eventually adopted, to a degree, the Jewish religion as a cover for their deeds. But this is very, very detailed because it talks about the first Rothschild and who he was. Okay, all right, so now this is a reality revision. I want people to get how these change the nature of reality forever, okay? Okay, so there was a man, his name was Meyer Amschel Bauerberg. He created the alias Rothschild for himself based on the red shield symbol that was outside of his father's silversmith shop. This fellow was born in 1743. He died in 1812. In his late 20s, which would be around 1770, he formulated a financial scheme with 12 other entrepreneurs who shared his interest in global domination, conquering the world and all of its inhabitants. They were going to do it with the financial scheme of reserve banking, and there was a precedent for this that they had learned it from, and this was the Bank of Amsterdam in 1610. So Bauerberg, who now renamed himself Rothschild, sent his 5 sons to foreign countries to begin setting up the financial enterprise of fractional banking, and all of these were linked together. So that meant you could deposit gold at one of their banks and get a receipt, and then go to another one of their banks and turn the receipt in and get your gold. And then, of course, this was for your safety and the protection of your wealth, right? You didn't have to worry about robbers or pirates or whatever. Your wealth was secure. Okay. Now, here's something interesting. Years ago, I met somebody heavily involved in globalism and this mindset, even the mindset that, you know, you and I are Lilliputians, we're the lesser races that have to be managed because we'll just destroy everything. This person said to me one day, they flat out said to me, I was telling them, this was before I had published my first book, and I was telling them what I was working on, and they flat out said to me, the people are a bunch of goddamn sheep. They have to be told when to eat, and they have to be told when to stop. They have to be taken out to the pasture every day because they are too caught up in their own immediate needs and wants to remember where it was from the day before. And this was in response to the book that I was writing and trying to educate people about what was happening. And I said, well, look, I still have to try anyway. And they said, well, of course you do. And there was a previous conversation we had had where this person mumbled something to me, and I didn't quite catch it. And I said, I'm sorry, what was that? And they looked at me and they said, MJ12. And I'm sitting there looking at her. I'm sure she thought I was just a huge idiot because the only time I had ever heard MJ12, the Majestic 12, was in response to UFO literature. Do you remember that? okay? Majestic 12 files.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at her. I have no idea what the hell she's talking about. And so I say, I'm sure there's something more in what you're saying, but I just don't know what it is. And she said, there are 12 families that run the world, and there's nothing that you can do about it.